We are back for part two of fascinating deck building decisions made by MHA top cutters for the Rochester RLE. Today we have the top 8 decks, starting with Wesley Bittner on Good Giro. Now, just a few months back, Wesley made top cuts at the Kansas City Regional License Exam with a very similar Good Giro list. Now, that was before Undaunted Raid, so let's see the updates that have happened since then. One of the main updates is the addition of the Plus Ultra card Save a Million Strike, which is a 3-diff attack that has charge, so it's going to get the damage from Giro, and you can change the zone of it. So it's a 2-low 2, but if you play it as your 4th card, it's going to be a 2-low 6. And then has this response after you block with this card, add it to your momentum, which can really set up some specialized sound waves chains. And then one card that Wesley took out was New Training Method. And rather than play this 2-diff, basically spam foundation, he decided to play more 1s and 0s. So here we see the new list, and we are also running the cards Keeping Aries Safe and the Big 3. The Big 3, we basically just replaced Passing the Torch with the Big 3. And now that we had the 2-diff Passing the Torch out of there, we freed up room to get rid of New Training Method. I guess we also added in Nice Try. We added in Nice Try, we added in Big 3, and we added in Keeping Aries Safe. The Big 3, you get the draw if you have 3 attacks in your card pool, which is pretty easy for Giro, and it has some insane deadlock enhance that can really help Giro put the pressure on her rival. So those were the updates that were made. There wasn't really anything necessarily big excluded because not a lot of cards actually came out. It was more so just set 5 cards getting added in. Like you can see, we had 20 cards, and here we have 22 cards. And basically it was just Save a Million Strike came in, and one copy of another attack came out. I did like seeing the 3 copies of Airstream Driver. I think we had 2 or 3 decks in the Rochester top 16 running Airstream Driver. Very cool card. It gets to be 6/9 if you play it a little later in your attack string, and you can always seal a rival asset or foundation. That can be big for pushing through Airy, for example. And let's see. At least I think it seals an asset or foundation. Maybe it's just a foundation. 90% sure an asset or foundation, but I don't have the card in front of me. So don't judge me if it's just a foundation. All right, at 7th, we have Dylan on Chaos Amajiki. And I didn't really put anything under the excluded because Dylan's list was a bigger Amajiki list. It was a little under 70 cards, I believe. And he was playing a ton of attacks and foundations at a 1-of. So I put all of these cards over here. Whereas most Amajiki lists kind of say, okay, am I running Ice Storm or am I not? Dylan's list was, we are going to run a little bit of everything. And so you can see 1 Blitz Rush, 1 Chicken Kick, 1 Cheerful Uppercut, 1 Seafood Slugger, Levitate, Agency Trainees, and Surge. Just one of these tech pieces, which I think is really neat. But if we took out all of the 1x cards, then here you can see basically the core engine of the deck, which is very similar to most Amajiki lists. I feel like out of the last, I think we've had 6 or 7 Amajiki lists make top cuts now this season, and I feel like all of them pretty much have the same core on the Chaos symbol, although some aren't running Indiscriminate and Ice Storm and things like that, or you might be running 3 Sun Eaters, the big 3, instead of 2. Or maybe you took out Feeling Cute for something else, but pretty much everybody has the same engine here. I do like how many Rochester lists have 1x cards. I think it kind of shows that we are in a really cool format right now where people are living to turns 4 and 5, and you're getting the chance to get these tech pieces on your stage and you still want to see them. We're not getting killed by these super synergistic and 50 card aggro lists. Maybe a little bit with Fire Rappas. And Future is now Giro. But overall, it feels like we're in a pretty healthy format. At number 6, we have Justin on Chaos Mimic, and Justin just made 2nd at Gen Con. So let's just see how his list has changed. And the main change has been a move from Trigger Transformation to more Shocking Entrance and Twisting Azure Inferno. So here is the list that Justin used for this RLE. And you can see that we have Twisting Azure Inferno and Shocking Entrance now at a 4. They're just too key to the deck to keep them at 3s. We just want to, kind of simplify the deck and make the core engine a little stronger. And then We took training with Gunhead from a 3 to a 4, along with taking twisting to a 3 to a 4, since now this is going to give everything a speed, which Mimic typically struggles. He doesn't struggle with damage thanks to his face plus training weights, but he does struggle a little with speed. So training with Gunhead helps there, and then twisting Azure Inferno, giving your rivals checks -1 to everything, helps there quite a bit. And then shocking entrance, just you really get to get the asset that you want in your hand. So if you, for example, you don't have a training weights yet, you're really going to need that for a strong lethal attack string. And then trigger transformation was being run at a 3 of at Gen Con, but now he has taken it down to just a 1 of. Just would prefer to focus on these 4 diff attacks up here. All right, and at number 5, we have Corey Nelson on Order Shigaraki 3. I realize I forgot to put his character down here. And he was running 4 copies of Inverted Knife Throw. Very, very cool. Again, I think this is like another kind of niche attack that we're actually seeing in 2 or 3 lists here. So like we saw Inverted Knife Throw in several lists, Airstream Driver, Twin Sword Slicer, all of these attacks that we're not used to seeing. And here at the Rochester RLE, we see them in 2 or 3 different lists. Very, very cool decks that we have here. So 4 copies of Inverted Knife Throw. It's a 2 low block, 4 high 4, that's sometimes 4 high 6. And you can commit a foundation after you check this card added to your momentum face up. That can be kind of nice if you check it on like defense and you still block it, and then you put it into your momentum, and now you have momentum for your Shigaraki 3 once per game at the beginning of your start of your turn. And then I said that it was instead of repeated 100% smash, because this is also a 4 diff basically, since it's always going to ready at least 1. 4 diff, 4 high 6 with EX3 and powerful 3. Right, in my Order Shigaraki 3 list, I run a few repeated 100% smash, because you have to run Jolt, you have to run Vital Seizing, you have to run Trigger and Indiscriminate Shock, and then after that, it's really up to you. So here we've decided to go Inverted Knife Throw with a few copies of Decaying Palm Slam. Very, very neat. And then we can always sideboard into 4th kind when we have a bad matchup. But other than that, this is pretty much your typical order list. There's nothing really jumping out at me. We've got our 3 copies of Masterminding. I do like the copy of Blood Curdle with another copy of Blood Curdle in the sideboard. I'm not sure if who Corey lost to. Maybe it was like Overhaul. It would be a little weak to Blood Curdle. Tabe, not so much. Nomu would be very weak to Blood Curdle, and Momo would be very weak to Blood Curdle. So the Blood Curdles definitely would have come in handy in this top 16. And then at number 4, we have Daniel on Earth Overhaul. And Daniel is running this Overhaul Foundation Reconstruction. It's in the Overhaul kit, but it really hasn't seen a lot of play so far. But with the addition of Maximum Overhaul in addition to Hardened Jab, you really want to be hiding your attacks in your stage and then picking them up later. And Reconstruction helps push that game plan. And he's doing it over like traditional defense cards like I'll Protect You and High Value Target. Now, he's not playing 0 defense. We still have some like tech pieces like Surprise Interception and Faith Shield and Converting Captured Pieces. Wait a second, Converting Captured Pieces, is that the, or is that the draw card one? I think it also has a defense on the top one, but now my mind all of a sudden went blank and I wasn't as confident as when I started. But yeah, we're not really playing a ton of defense. We're really just relying on Overhaul for our defense. And then we're playing this Hardened Jab, Hardened Frenzy, Reconstruction Wrecker, Maximum Overhaul, just this heavy game plan of pulling attacks from our stage and playing them, and Reconstruction just fits right in there. I really like this copy of Mimicry. We're also going to see this in the next list of Mimicry and the Tabe. Just can become whatever you want when you need it. If you need the Prehensile Tail or the Cooperation offer, you've got Mimicry to go. I'm a little surprised at Carbo loading over a card like Pull No Punches. Since we're not running any throws to guarantee the carbo loading, but eventually it gets there, and we need cards that re-ready, especially when we're playing Maximum Overhaul strings. And then at number 3, we have Scott on Evil Tabe, and he was running Tetra Terror Onslaught, which I thought was a really neat piece over cards like Pop-Off Step. Pop-Off Step was just one that kind of came to mind of looking at other Tabe lists, but Tabe's pretty, like the first several attacks are pretty easy. We're going to be playing Eat My Sticky Balls, Tongue Whip, Tentacle Strike, Insatiable Appetite, Amphibious Ambush. These are 5 pretty obvious cards that go along with his gimmick of clearing cards from your rival's card pool to draw and get damage. But after that, it becomes a little more complicated. Tetra Terror Onslaught is very, very neat because Amphibious Ambush can get you the momentum to give it the echo. And then Onslaught's main downside is that it's only 4 damage, which Tabe solves, makes it 6 damage. And with Tabe, especially after like a Tongue Whip and an Amphibious Ambush, they're really probably not going to be blocking it, and especially when you echo it and it gets to be 6 speed. So you're going to be picking up a Tongue Whip, or you can use it to pick up an Insatiable Appetite, just perfect kill cards. Other than that, it's evil good stuff. I do like this copy of Shadow's Aid down here. And at second place, we have Jacob on Earth Nomu, and he was running the Plus Ultra card, Locking the Building, which we can use in our card pool. We can flip. You may play 1 Ready Foundation from your stage face down into your card pool as a block with a 1 block modifier to block this attack. Very, very neat, especially since Nomu is only a 5-hander and really struggles with blocking, to always have a block if you have Locking the Building in your card pool. And as this response destroy, after an attack is played, that card cannot leave the card pool during the combat phase. So very strong against like Dual Needle Lunge, Instant Explosive Release, and cards like that we can just force them to stick there. So, very good against some of the stronger decks in the format right now. And one thing I thought was very fascinating is that Jacob was not running any copies of It Can't Be Fixed. Traditionally what we think of as like a broken zero diff. It was in the top 5 for my band watch for the month of September, but we are not running any copies of it. Pretty surprising, especially since we have a Hardened Jab deck. But it's just that Jacob is opting for these 2-diff foundations that are a little more niche, but can really save you, like learning the standards we saw come in play. Just huge. We saw Pull No Punches being a big deal in the finals against Kevin to make sure that Kevin couldn't actually build past 10 foundations as Momo, to keep the pressure up on Momo and her destroying your stage. And then we have Locking the Building, Prehensile Tail, learning the standards. So we're just opting out of this zero diff that is just sometimes blank on our stage, and we're opting for, stronger 2 difficulty cards. Other than that, it's your pretty standard Earth attack, punch, Nomu list. The one attack that we've seen kind of with Muscle Mauler and Calorie Counter entering these lists, we've seen Tetsu Thrashing kind of not be played anymore. It is a 2-check. It works well with this Barrage and Hardened Jab recurring attacks combo. But now we don't, no mood lists don't really need to be running that 2-check. You can get Muscle Mauler to draw back your momentum. And anyway, Calorie Counter as a very fast attack, Nomu, and keeping up with that all mid-zone strategy. And then at number 1, we had Kevin Broberg, our reigning world champion. And now he was playing good Momo. And he was running Twin Sword Slicer instead of Create Capturing Net. They're both 2 low 4s, but Twin Sword Slicer can echo itself, and it can become 6 damage instead of just 4, and you can freeze a rival foundation. There's just a lot of utility to this card. It's also a low block that Momo can go and pick up since it's a weapon. And it just fits into this echo strategy that Kevin's list has with Twin Sword Slicer and Double Trouble. Momo can go and pick up Twin Sword Slicer. UA High can go and pick up Double Trouble since it is an ally. And, Kevin was running this Command Pigeon Flock, UA High, Friend of Animals combo in his HLC winning list with Chaos Midnight. And here we see it come back. Instead, we're just putting Momo instead of Midnight. And Momo maybe runs it even better than Midnight does. And Friend of Animals also works really well with like training weights to commit for the damage, and to re-ready this, and you're also getting the 2 speed. So very neat there. Also, notice the zero diffs in Kevin's list. He's only running 2 zero diffs, and he's only running 1 Back Alley Haymaker. When's the last time we saw a good deck list only running 2 zero diffs and 1 Back Alley Haymaker? Very, very neat here. I feel like between Kevin's list, Tim's Bakugo list, and Jacob's Nomu list, they're just kind of showing us that you don't need to be running a ton of zero diffs. And as a newer player to the game that only started playing in the My Hero format, this is kind of surprising to me because we've always, it's been kind of like drilled into me that you just want to play as many foundations as you can and then string out as many attacks as you can. And a lot of times these stronger cards, like 5 diff attacks or assets or 2 diff and 3 diff foundations, a lot of times, like, even though they might be more powerful, they're just not worth it because the name of the game in MHA feels like a maximum efficiency. But we're seeing like Tim, Kevin, Jacob like push back on that a little bit, showing that you don't need to be running, 60% spam foundations in your lists to have success, especially as Momo, who's getting to build down from her card pool. Kevin is running 10 assets here in his list. The other thing about Kevin's list is it is, let's see, 16 plus 35 is 51 plus this 68. So it is 68 cards, and we are only running 17 attacks. So that is exactly 25%, a very, very low attack ratio. But Momo gets away with this because Momo can just go grab the weapon that she needs from her discard. And then with the 3 copies of UA High, Kevin, most games it seemed like, was having a UA High in his stage at one point or another. And then he can go and just grab another attack. And then when he goes and grabs a Twin Sword Slicer or a Double Trouble, that's not just 1 attack, it's 2 attacks. And you have Create Bow Staff, Command Pigeon Flock to build. These attacks just have a lot of value to them. And then Kevin's list is running a lot of cards at a 1 of. So I also took this list and I just took out all the cards at a 1x to make it really simple so we can see the engine of the deck. It's fundamentally these 5 attacks with these assets, and Body Rejuvenation at a 4 is pretty neat. As soon as it goes into the discard, which Momo is always destroying her foundations, you're getting 2 damage, or you're gaining 2 health. And of course you're gaining the health off of Rising Starlet. So you kind of get this like Recovery Girl feel to this list. And you can always discard for the -2 speed, which sometimes can be very, very strong. And then we've, passing the torch, Small and Limber. There's all sorts of ways in this deck to ready Small and Limber. And I really liked, let me get my face out of the way. I really liked this 3 copies of I Am Here. A lot of times I find myself cutting I Am Here despite loving the card, just because it feels clunky, like it's not adding to my deck, but it does so much. You get to either build your foundation or you're getting to start your attack string off with +3 speed and from your deck instead of from your hand. Just feels very, very strong. And then Capture Evildoers at a 3 of. I would not have guessed that the only list in top 16 to be running Capture Evildoers would be good Momo. And no Mirios or All Might 3s made it. But Capture Evildoers still in the winning RLE list, despite only being in 1 top 16 list. And it was with Good Momo with Kevin Broberg. And that will do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video as we looked through the top 8 deck lists of the Rochester RLE. Some extremely fascinating deck building decisions being made by some of the best players in the game. A lot to learn from these deck lists. I will probably be back tomorrow with some more snap grades of Jetburn card reveals. At this point, I am pretty well behind. I think I've got Deku 5, I've got Ryukyu, I've got Jiro 2, and whoever is revealed tomorrow. So I'm definitely gonna have my work cut out for me for snap grades, but I am looking forward to it, and I will see you tomorrow.